So the idea is we're going to, as part of the transition, the handover of responsibilities, I'm just going to walk you through what I do each month. We're not going to be able to complete the monthly closing because I typically do it on the first of the month. Because it does span. In this case, it'll be October 1st to October. How many days are there?
31st.
31st. Thank you. Halloween. So we'll do it for the entire month. The good news is, at this moment in time, one of the reports I can do them all. They just won't be accurate. And I'll redo them on November 1st. So let me take you through the process. The process has these steps. Famous last words. Okay. So, I'm working backwards in a way, because the ultimate step is we email an email to the bookkeeper, Sheila, and I copy typically Mary as treasurer and a couple of, I'll look at a moment at the email and I'll remind myself who all I send it to. And what I do is I clone it each month. Some months I've forgotten to change it from September, October, but I clone the email, and then I run these reports and I put them into the Dropbox. And I not only put them into the Dropbox and send the recipient of the email the link to the folder in the Dropbox, which I'll show you in a moment, but I also attach them to the email. So everybody's got them, very handy, but it's also in the archive of the Dropbox in case somebody loses the email, or historically we want to go back and find reports from a couple of years ago. So the reports that we do on a monthly basis, with some exceptions, we'll do cash receipts for the whole month. We'll do account distributions for the whole month by location, and I'll show you those. Barry has already, and he and I have gotten into a nice rhythm, typically by the middle of the month, and Barry's already done it for the month of October, has set them up so that by the time I'm sitting down in the wee hours of November 1st, I just go in and run them. They're all set up and ready to roll, okay? So that's true for the cash receipts, the account distribution. There's an agency payment, which is done bi-weekly, and it's from, I believe, Mondays through Sunday. We'll look at the dates in a moment. And then there's an agency payment which is done for the whole month. I'll come back to agency payment to describe it a little bit more. In the months of June and July, if we've opened the next year's annual, even individual terms, registration for, let's say, the September term gets opened by the end of the spring term, if people start enrolling, that is what's called deferred revenue. It's deferred revenue because, from an accounting accrual point of view, it's not considered earned until the next fiscal year. Our fiscal year runs from September to August 31st. So for a class that begins in, let's say, September 2020, if we are booking revenue in June or July of 2020, it's not earned in the fiscal year 1920, it's earned in the fiscal year 2021.
Okay.
So it's considered deferred, and it shows up as such in those account distribution reports, but it also then, so Sheila can get an advance look, there's this deferred revenue report, which effectively says, this is being deferred and it'll be treated as earned or accrued income come September, come the start of the next fiscal or school year. And we're also going to get into, now we're going to be running a learning stream report, which I showed you briefly yesterday, but we'll look at it again today. Let me come back to the agency payment. It's bi-weekly because it ties out, it agrees to a check which Sheila receives every 2 weeks from ActiveNet. So ActiveNet is rather different than Learning Stream. The one good thing about Learning Stream is the payments are deposited to our account like almost immediately.
Immediately. Wow.
Yeah. And so that's very nice. The thing that's maddening is some of the reporting is not quite as well organized. So but coming back to ActiveNet, so there's this bi-weekly remittance, and the agency payment report, then if we run it on that same bi-weekly Monday through Sunday, the Sunday after the next Sunday cycle, which I'll show you in a moment, the bottom line should tie out to a check that Sheila actually receives. But we also send her a full month agency payment. I believe, even though the information should be in the account distribution, Sheila also likes to have it on a monthly basis. It will not tie out to any checks because the checks aren't organized that way. Sometimes
But from an accounting point of view, she has it.
yes. And of course, if it's running on a biweekly basis, sometimes the agency payment straddles, most often it straddles 2 months. At least one of the several will straddle a month. And that's why we're going to be able today to run a bona fide agency payment report, because I think the biweekly period began September 30th, Monday, September 30th. I'm looking at my calendar, and would end on not the 6th, but the 13th. So that's a biweekly period that should tie out to a check that Sheila should be receiving shortly. So we can actually do one live, and we'll post it to the Dropbox, and that piece will be out of our way. Okay? So what I'm going to do as I go through this is I'm going to create some documentation. I'm just duplicating the slides because my idea is I'm going to take each one of these and sort of put in a, like, okay, what do we mean email to the bookkeeper treasurer? So what I mean is, if I go into the registration inbox and I search for closing, probably monthly closing would do it, I can see the STARS monthly closing for September. So let me use my little snipping tool. And I'm going to just quickly take a screenshot of this. And I'm going to put it into, just bear with me, I'm going to put it into the documentation. Et voila. And as you can see, it was sent to Sheila, copying, well, you can't see the copying, but trust me, it was sent from my email address, and it was sent to Sheila, Mary, me, in this case, is the registration inbox, to Barry, and to Russell Bosworth. Okay, the September, so, you know, what we'll do is I'll come back to this, and I'm actually going to now, I'm going to say forward, just for giggles. And I'm actually going to get rid of all of this stuff. I'm just using the verbiage. I'm going to get rid of all of the reports. I'm removing all of the attachments. I'm just setting up a shell, and I'm going to remove the Dropbox link. That's for September, and we're setting it up for October. So I've got it set up, except that I've got to put in the recipients. I like to use BCC. That way, indiscriminate use of reply all doesn't have a deleterious effect. Anyway, so this is the shell, and it's pretty much, if you don't mind my saying, dear Sheila, we can start, you know, we can start filling this out as we move along. All right. So that is setting up the email to the bookkeeper. The next step, let me duplicate this again, so I've got it there for the future. The next step is the Dropbox.
Randolph?
Yes, Barry.
No, so you're sending it from your personal email.
No, I'm not. I had been in the past.
Oh, okay.
What I'll leave it up to Karen to decide. It could be sent from the registration ad. It could be sent from your personal one. I happen to like at least having a copy of it. That way I didn't have to, you know, I could search for it if somebody asked a question. But I leave that up to you how you'd like to organize that, Karen.
Because I noticed when you had the search, that was only in a way because you had emailed it to registration.
No, I mean, I don't have time, really, inclination, frankly, to go to my email and prove to you. If I search for that, I would find it there as well.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If you just sent it from the registration, wouldn't have had the benefit of it being mailed to registration.
No, because well, that's true. You could always copy registration when you send it from registration.
Okay, fine. Okay.
Either way, and sometimes I do that just to make sure I got it in my inbox. So anyways, moving right along, we're now going to move on to the next element, which is the Dropbox. So I'm going to go into, I'm opening up a new browser tab. I'm going into Dropbox, and I think, Karen, you and I touched on this yesterday. It's probably, yeah, I'm already logged into the registration Dropbox, but I think we touched on yesterday how to log into the Dropbox for the registration account. Now, in there now, if I go into Files, The very first folder that's showing up here is Stars Closings. And it happens to have 6 members. Let's see, Russell, the registration team, me personally, and 2 more. Let's see who those are. Those 2 are Sheila and Karen. Oh, and Barry, I'm sorry. Sheila, Barry, Karen, me, the registration team, and Russell. But you'll also notice that Barry and Karen can edit, so can Sheila. Russell can only view. And I've shifted the ownership from myself, which it was, as of a week or so ago. Now the registration team is the owner. What that means is coming in under the registration account to the Dropbox, you can add or delete or change the permissions for individuals, whereas before only I could do that. Okay, so this is it. And by the way, well, you can create a link. I don't want to create a link. I'll tell you why. I'm going to go into the Stars Closings. You can see them sitting out there since 2011. That's funny, they're not. That's interesting, the sequence of them. All right, I'm going to go into the closings for 2019. Now you'll notice that I prefix the month with a number. And the reason for that is otherwise it's going to sort them based on, I think, April will show up before August, and then whatever's next, February. So it's not going to be in date order, it's going to be in alphabetical order. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new folder. I'm going to call it 10 October 2019 closing. And it's going to everybody gets access to it, that's fine. And it's empty, of course it is, okay? So we will leave that here, but what I'm going to do at this moment, since I'm here, is I'm going to share it. Let's see, I don't see how I can share it from here. So let me go back up a level to the 2019 closings. And alongside this new one that I just created, I'm going to click share. And it can only be shared as a link because it's a shared folder. I wouldn't worry about that. I'm going to click where it says create a link. And now I created a link and I'm going to copy it. And that link I'm going to put into this email. Et voila. Oh. So at such time as we populate that Dropbox with various things, clicking that link, in fact, let me get out of Dropbox just to prove this. I have that link still in my clipboard. I'm going to paste it into my browser and hit enter. Now, if I weren't logged on already, you might be forced to log on, but take a look. I went right directly to the October 10, the October 2019 closing folder. Mm-hmm. So that is a not to a file, and you can also do links to individual files, but this is a link to a whole folder which will contain X number of files. And I've already...
hang on just a second.
Yes.
So you created the link from the October page.
I actually created it. I didn't see a way to do it when I was in the October page. When I'm in here, I may be. Oh, wait a minute. What does this link say? No, people with the link can view. No, the way I created it, I didn't see a way to do it, so I went back up the chain.
Yeah.
Sort of a chain. What's called a root directory is Dropbox. The next branch in the tree is Stars Closing. Below that are the 2019 closings, which is the parent of the folder in which we currently sit, being a parent of October. And when I go back to see all of the closing folders, the 10 of them now for the year.
Oh, I see. Then you can do it there.
If I go to share, it says I can copy. Now I've already created the link. I can just copy it.
Right.
So now I've got that same link, which I went ahead and I pasted it into the.
Got it. Okay.
I mean, if you don't get the link, you can always come back, navigate through Dropbox, and go down the tree from 2019 to October, and you got it again. So now let me see what we're up to in our in this documentation. Oh, I don't know. I didn't put much in here. Let me put something in here for fun. What should I put in here? I'll put in here.
Well, why don't you do what you said? Let's do the
Yeah, I'm gonna, yeah, in just a moment, let me just have some fun. I will just put in here the fact that, we created a folder for the month, right?
So cool.
Okay. And I'm not going to document getting the link at the moment. We have it in the video if you need to recover that. Okay, so let me now, what am I up to? I'm going to take this and I'm going to do reports. And now let's start going into ActiveNet. Reports. Now, most of them I have set up. I'm not sure if this is probably unique to the way I decided to have certain favorites. But if you don't come in and look at the favorites, you can always go over to financial reports. And let's go first to the cash receipts report.
How do you make a favorite?
That's a good question. Let me see if I go to favorites. I don't remember.
I've tried, you know.
Yeah, let me just see if there's anything when I go into the report itself. Now, there's nothing in here that says added to my favorites. Let me just have fun. Let me go to a credit on account report. Well, I don't favorites. I'm afraid I really don't remember. I don't.
Manage favorites, last thing.
Where do you see? Oh, manage favorites.
Yeah.
Excellent. So if I say add menu item, oh, this is done by role. So whatever. No, but this is adding people to it. It's not adding.
Oh,
It's not adding reports to what I'm considering favorites. Barry, I would search the help center and I'd remind myself, but it'd be a little bit of a digression. So
okay,
I'll
fine.
leave it to you and you can teach us. Okay. All right. So coming back to cash receipts, if I recall the saved reports, I see that Barry has it already set up for the month of October. So Barry and I have gotten into a nice rhythm. He was a little bit ahead of the game this month. Usually, I say usually, try to remember in the middle of the month, get it set up. I think you were done, I don't know, a week or so, whatever. So the simplicity is that you'll see it now says October 1 to October 31st. Next month he'd come in here and hit 11/1. And 30 days, half September and November and whatever, right? I'm not going to hit save because I would mess up Barry's work, but he would then come in here and change the title and we'd have the new one for next month. Right? You know the difference between save and save as, Karen?
Yes.
Okay, good. So I'm not going to save this at all. It's going to warn me I didn't save it. I'm going to go back to the cash receipts report. And now I'm going to recall the one that was saved. I'm going to simply come in here and hit run. And there it is. Let me document this. Now, again, this is obviously not legitimate at this moment in time, being as it was written, it was done at 9:13 a.m. on October 17th.
Could have done September.
That's true. Anyway, so that just gives you, it's obviously what we use every day for the daily cash close report, but here it is for a full month, and it gives Sheila something to balance the other reports against. Just make a couple of extra shells. Okay, so let me do the account distribution next for the month by location. Okay, so coming back to our friend in stars, or ActiveNet, account distribution you'll see that Barry has set up for the month a bunch of saved reports for the month of October. Now, my guess is, well, we see there were a couple of Hudson Valley people that enrolled late, so we may see some things there. Oh, and of course, the senior people are paying in some cases every month, so you may. But my point in this is there may be certain months where there is nothing for a given location. And Karen, do you know, or Barry, what the PA stands for?
No, Pennsylvania?
A very good guess, but wrong. So the PA is public access.
Wow.
There are certain things that aren't really attributable to a given location. The most prominent example these days, and for quite some time, is donations. You know, it's not a course that's hanging on the Hudson Valley or PPO in New York. So if it's not attributable to any location, it goes in public access. Let's see, let's run the public access for the month of October. So again, it's all set up already for the full month. And we can see that there were 2 donations, probably people who have a $25 a month standing donation. And this is called an account distribution because it's debits and credits by account. So in what's called double entry bookkeeping, your debits always equal your credits. So the transferred amount should always be 0. And this is a credit to revenue and a debit to cash. Let's take a look at another one. The juiciest one, so to speak, should be New York. So I will run that, and then I'll use that as the example that I paste into the document. So let's see, we've had some events, right? A couple of either Plato Day or Emerson, things like that. We have revenue for classes. We have M, which is for middle school revenue, and S, which is for senior level revenue. And the purpose behind those, while I'm in here, I'll just describe a little bit. Sheila does what I'm not sure what she calls it, but when I was at IBM, they used to call it an ICA, an intercompany adjustment. So some of the senior level revenue, some of the M level revenue is really attributable to Wallkill. I mean, just by way of background, the reason the M level fee is $345 and the N level is $195 is a $150 difference, which is attributable to the weekend. In PPO, when people sign up for a weekend, they do so a la carte, so to speak, because it isn't baked into their termly fee. And they pay $150. But so as to give Sheila a device to say, you know, this isn't all 415. It's 415M. We break it out so that she can look at that $2,070 and use some split concept to say a piece of that is for Wallkill, income for Wallkill, to offset the cost of Hardy with Bill. And similarly for the senior level. And I'm not sure at the moment why there's residential revenue. 2 of them, $50 each. I'd have to drill into it to really understand what that is. Yeah, I'm not remembering sitting here what the purpose of that is. All right. Anyway, the rest of these I won't go into in the month. Current AR versus future AR. That is accounts receivable, monies that are owed. But if you sign up for an annual plan, it's not current until, let's say, October 15th. Right? There are still due and payables for November, but we don't consider those currently due. The person is not in arrears. It is considered a receivable. It's what's, you know, it is something that's due us, but it's in the future. So that's a distinction between the current AR and the future AR. All right. Having said that, the purpose of this really was just to generate the reports, not to be a whole seminar, and some of the stuff is useful as you begin. So let me just have fun and paste this into our document, which I'll clean up with titles a little bit later. But what are we up to? That was the agency payment. Oh no, that was the account distribution. So for the month by location, and as you could see, Barry had it set up for the month for each of the 4 locations. Moving right along, we'll go to the agency payment. And I'll show here, and let me take a little snip of it, that the agency payment, there's some that are sitting now there for like other uses, but the ones that Barry has been updating on a, make an extra page, I'll clean this up a little bit later, but the ones that you can see there are those that have a biweekly period. And notice there's one that I alluded to before for September 30th through October 13th. And that one, since October 13th is behind us, we can actually run that now and put it into the Dropbox. And that will tie out to a check that Sheila should be receiving these days. By the way, as I mentioned, it sometimes straddles the month. So I leave it up to you to decide into which of the two Dropboxes to place this report. I've gotten into the habit of putting it into the second of the 2 months, and I've never gotten a call from Sheila saying I need the report to tie. So strictly speaking, sometimes it's ended. In this case, it began the day before the end of the month, but sometimes it'll end the day after the end of the month. And I don't put it in until a whole month later when I send, the next month's group of reports. And I'm always wondering, gee, is Sheila going to call me up and ask me for the biweekly report? I've never gotten a call yet.
You wouldn't do both?
No. And in fact, I'm thinking of just putting recipes in there and seeing if anybody notices the difference. Okay. All right, moving right along. Thank you for your good humor. All right, so having done that, let's take a look at the biweekly agency payment report, and I'm going to run it for this biweekly period. So this will be real and bona fide. It's already set, got the date, so I just go in here and click Run Report. And there it is. Let me just take a snip of it, and then I'll start to describe what we're looking at. Okay, so what is this? Well, we can see it's got PPO, it's got Hudson Valley, it's got New York, and it has public access. There's our $50 we saw before, right? There were 2, I made a theory, there were 2 donations, $25 monthlies. So what you see is the amount paid, how much came through electronic check or debit credit card, and in this case, all of it is coming through that method. Because again, it's interesting. There's no difference. Oh yes, there is. Hudson Valley, and this makes sense. I got a feeling that Charlene receives a lot of cash and checks. So of the $450 in revenue that Hudson Valley took in the between September 30th and October 13th, only $25 was via credit card. And it's a little bit of a curious amount, but I don't know. Anyway, so this is what's through credit card. I don't remember ever seeing anything here in a convenience fee column, but there are 2 components of fees that we pay. A transaction fee, which is raised by ActiveNet themselves, and each transaction is roughly $2.25. So for example, here, these 2 transactions amounted to $4.50. And there is a merchant fee, and the merchant fee itself has 2 components. There's a fixed amount, which I think is like cents maybe, or 50 cents. And then there's a percentage component, which I think is something like 2%. So, that's why, of course, you go to a candy store and they don't let you use credit card if you're just buying, I forget what a candy bar is these days, $6? I don't know.
Yeah.
Really? Okay. But, they typically say no credit cards for under $5 or $10 or something like that, because they're paying a fixed expense every time you swipe a credit card. So they don't want to do it for small amounts. And that's also somewhat behind the rationale why, when we give a refund, we hold back a piece of it, because we're not only paying a credit card component, but we're also paying ActiveNet a transaction fee. Now, that again falls into the fact that if you see a mistake and you can catch it before midnight, in ActiveNet you can process a void. Just makes things simpler. Not so with LearningStream. LearningStream is virtually instantaneous. So be it. By the way, we don't pay a transaction fee in LearningStream.
Oh, nice.
We pay an annual fee. So no matter how much it is not variable based on volume, but that component of it. There still is a merchant fee, and unlike ActiveNet, with ActiveNet, they handle the merchant, what's called the merchant banking component of it. With LearningStream, we had to reach out to and engage another company, and they were given a list of 7 or 8 companies that LearningStream works with, and we are using Authorize.net. So they are the intermediary between LearningStream and these clearinghouses and merchant banking organizations, is Authorize.net. And Sheila and I worked together to set up that, and then we hooked it into, we configured something in LearningStream to say, okay, of the 7 or 8 that we work with, which one are you picking? And you checked off Authorize.net. So they still hit us with fees. So far, it's too early days to really see. Nick, who did the evaluation, thought their fees might be cheaper. I think they're roughly comparable. I think it's like 0.02 versus 0.022, or I don't know. It's a very, very similar fee, but there is no transaction fee component in ActiveNet. Excuse me, in LearningStream. There's an annual fee. So the interesting thing will be, as you know, we're continuing to hold on to ActiveNet to run out the annual plans, but because as things taper off, our monthly expense through ActiveNet is going to start to dwindle, because there is no monthly fee that we pay. Not so with LearningStream. Whether we use it or not, we're still paying that annual fee. Anyway, it's good to hear this stuff, but this is the agency payment, and Sheila should literally receive a check for $6,349.92. That's the amount down here on the bottom right. So again, in summary, students paid $7,377. Some of it was by credit card, some of it was through other methods. But the other methods are not being remitted in this agency payment report. Charlene has the check, or she has the cash. So this is the gross amount paid by the student, but the amount that went to the credit card, which is really, if you think about it, agency payment has to do with what is the payment agency going to pay to us. And every 2 weeks, the amount that gets paid is the amount that went through either credit card or electronic check minus these fees. So the $6,722 minus the $255, $370 something gets you down to $6,349.92. That should be the check that would tie out to the check that Sheila receives every 2 weeks. Questions? Okay. All right. So one more. I think we have one more report, which I can't run now because it only is legitimate at certain times of the year, and that is the deferred revenue. That is only there in June and July, so we could talk about it then. And then finally, the LearningStream report.
Randolph.
Yes, Barry.
So once we have suspended work with ActiveNet,
Yes.
no more deferred revenue.
It's still an open question as to whether PPO is going to continue under ActiveNet.
Okay.
I reserve the right to have that conversation with the New York leadership.
Cool. Okay.
Right now, PPO is agreed to be under it. The only thing, as you know, from a non-PPO point of view, is the run out of those annual plans. But you're right. In concept, once that happens, there shouldn't be any of this reporting going on.
From ActiveNet.
From ActiveNet,
But
correct.
Learning Stream doesn't have it because.
Well, Learning Stream, again, we touched on this briefly yesterday, and this was part of people's, I think, no, I didn't give this to them in the homework.
No.
So let me show this to you within Learning Stream. There is in the global reports, and I make a distinction of the global reports versus reports within a particular event. There's a financial report called a financial detail. So you go to reports, financial detail. Let me go there now. In Learning Stream, of course, I've been logged out. And I'm going to go to reports, financial detail. And I'm pretty sure if I put in 10-1, unfortunately, you got to put in the year, 10/31. And I just say everything, and I'm going to just do it as a display at the moment and load the report. Oh. I'm surprised. Julio Gelfand was allowed probably by some tutor to register on October 16th. Wait a minute, October 16th was yesterday.
Yeah.
So now, what does that raise in your supervisory capacity, Karen, as a question?
Who did it?
Huh?
Who did it before registration was open?
Yeah. And oh, by the way, this is for, well, the first question would be, what do they think they were enrolling them for? Next term? So one of our caballeros from yesterday at 8:12 p.m. enrolled a Julio Gelfand. So yes, I have it on tape for all time, Karen, the eyes that you just raised and rolled back into your head. We'll keep
So
this.
what course was it? It's a 101. It's this term.
You're right. It is. That's a good point. It's 101, so it was actually for this past term.
Maybe it was a late registration.
Well, as long as mistakes are being made, who knows how widespread the mistakes are. Karen, for your homework, I will take this since I'm here, and this one, and I will put into a, let's create a little bit of documentation for giggles, and I'm going to, I'll send it from the registration inbox. So that's one piece of documentation. It's a little bit small.
Can you enlarge it?
Yeah, so you just drag the edge.
Okay.
That's one thing. Now, the other place I'm going to go, since we're here, is I'm going to go into events, posted live.
Yeah.
I should actually go in here and shut this down. Now, it's interesting. Oh, that's right. It was 149. I should have noticed it went up to 150. Look at that. Okay. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to look for Gel. And there's Julio. And it's interesting that I did Gel because there's Sharon. And Julio has $90 due. So this continues our investigation. This is for Philosophy Works in New York. There's, I'll take out Evangelista. Let me just redo that search. And I'll say, oops.
Go to G and
I'll put an F in there. There they are, okay? So I did Gelf. So again, we can look at this and put it into the email. This is part of the delight of the detective work. You know, you come across these, shall I say, Freudian cries for help. Something happened. So now we have two questions. Let's see, Sharon's been in there. She's been in there since September 3rd. And my theory is somebody appealed. Maybe he's been sitting in there all along for all we know. It could be any number of things. You're on mute, Karen, but I can see you're screaming wildly. Okay. Thank you. All right. So anyway, so I'm going to put in here, let's see, for investigation, Julio Delphon. And actually, I'm not even going to send this, okay? I'm just going to save it, and it'll be sitting in the drafts folder. Okay, for investigation, Julio Gelfand, will you just make a note to make some inquiries? Again, at this stage of the game, we try to enforce things, but if a tutor has made an allowance, whatever, what I would simply want to do, if we hear from it, the next question is, why didn't Julio pay anything? And either that was an oversight on the part of the team, or they didn't know how to override it. If it is something to be overridden, you could simply come into the financials, as we talked about in the training, and enter an adjustment and put in minus 90. And so he'd be in balance. Otherwise, I'd be concerned that this is going to show up as an amount due and payable.
Right.
So,
Randolph,
yes,
did in fact it happen in the registration office?
so let's take a look. I believe so, because I saw it was 812. It's a good question. I'm not 100%. So let me go back to the to home. I'm going to look again for the Gelfans, and next to Julio, and we touched on this on training yesterday.
Edit, right?
Edit, exactly right. And then over on the right, we're going to see view history. And David Freckman at 8:13 p.m. processed the registration. He made a typo in the, it's interesting, right? You see all these different things. He made a typo in the email. He made it Gmail .com instead of .com. So it's pretty, I don't know, more information than we hope we'd ever need. But he did confirm it. But there's nothing in here about payments, obviously. I mean, we are seeing a $90. Again,
May I propose a theory?
go ahead.
My theory is that it hasn't stuck with us, that it's a two-step process,
Yeah.
that he registered and thought he was done.
Yeah. I've
For some
done
reason.
that.
So then the question would be, is David holding $90? Did he submit $90? Did he do a cash closeout? Because if he did, it wouldn't match. I mean, if somebody did, again, let's do what we're talking about. If you go to reports and financial and do the payment summary, and this is the way we do, right? And we do it for yesterday, which is 10/16.
And we want to do New York, don't we?
No, I'm not going to.
Practice.
I don't. Let's see what happens. Just bear with me.
All right.
Because unless Charlene, yeah, there's absolutely nothing. New York, Hudson Valley, nowhere. Which makes sense. We're in the middle of October. Nobody took any money. What doesn't make sense is, to your point, if he did take the money, either it's sitting somewhere and he never did this report and noticed the fact that he's holding $90 and it's not on the report, or more likely would be my theory, is that this was an accommodation. Maybe the guy's even been sitting in the class for the past 5-6 weeks. We don't know. So it's a piece of detective work, okay? And you got the tools. Just have the detachment also. That's one of the tools I've learned to some extent. Okay, so that's that, and I think that concludes this segment of our discussion about the different closing reports. So I'm going to stop the recording, and we'll.
So, Randolph, at the end of the month, there's just one report you submit from Learning Stream.
That's correct. Just the financial detail. Now, again, we happen to catch, what do we see as the financial detail? Hang on a minute. Here's the financial detail. Now, it's got stuff in here. The only thing that we see is a minus 90. Oh, wait a minute. No. This minus 90 is me playing around with a fake check number. The 90 is a charge that has no payment. So this usually would be something to flag a concern, because the charges and the payments should equal. Okay, so I would have expected And maybe it'll get cleaned up by the time we do the monthly close. That would be desirable so that we don't have to explain this to Sheila. But you would expect the charges to equal the payments. And as I say, I've put in account codes, so these are all 415. There is going to be some playing around. If I were to do this again, this financial detail, the payment report, this is why in the homework, I think I gave them a big swath of time. Not, well, yeah, if you did it going back to September 1st, then you would see, you know, several $1,000s based on everybody coming through since we opened Learning Stream pretty much. All right, so again, let me stop the recording. We'll pause.